Every single bad decision you made, every hurt that's been done to me, every flat tire of my life and every failure has led me to this exact moment right here, right now.
Hey there, and welcome to Above and Beyond, the podcast where excellence meets elevation. I'm your host, Jan Simon, and I'm here to bring you real, unfiltered conversations with the people who are pushing boundaries and building something bigger than themselves. Digging in on mindset, mission, and the moments that shape these high performers and purpose-driven leaders. Whether you're chasing your next level or just getting started, you're in the right place. This is more than a podcast. It's a mindset, and we're taking it above and beyond. Today on Above and Beyond, we're honored to sit down with a transformational leader whose life and mission are making a powerful impact across communities. Tracy Autber. Tracy is the founder and driving force behind Let's Go Recover, a nonprofit that exists to walk alongside individuals as they recover from addiction, trauma, and life's hardest moments. Through mentorship and community outreach, Tracy and his team are helping people find freedom, healing, and purpose. But Tracy's journey didn't start at the podium or behind a mic. He's a man who has walked through the fire himself, facing addiction, brokenness, and a long road of recovery. His lived experience fuels everything he does, making his message not just powerful, but deeply personal. He's also the host of Let's Go Recover podcast, where he brings forward raw, unfiltered conversations on faith, redemption, and what it really takes to change your life from the inside out. In addition to being a passionate advocate, Tracy is also a published author, motivational speaker, and an unwavering presence in the recovery community. He believes deeply in the power of God's grace and importance of second chances and the strength found in sharing your story. Get ready for a conversation about hope, grit, and going above and beyond, because Tracy Autber shows up. Transformation follows. Wow. Awesome. Well, welcome.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, I'm excited. I am throwing out full disclosure. This is the first time you and I have ever sat down together.
Yep.
So your story, I've heard from many different people, fascinates me. So let's start out. Tracy, where did you grow up?
I'm an upstate New Yorker, so I grew up in the cold and the ugly of upstate New York, and on the day I graduated, I have a grandfather that lived here in Arizona, so in the summer of 1995, I left the state. I was hoping to pursue a career and go to college, but was going to play baseball, and I thought I was real good. I went to a really good baseball school, and I thought for sure I was pretty good until I showed up to the first practice and realized that a good fielding second baseman that hit, about 300 was no good. This kid was about 4 inches taller than me, weighed 60 pounds more, and baseball was pretty much over. So
nice. So upstate,
Buffalo.
Okay. Frank's from Syracuse.
Oh, yeah, Frank and I.
So you guys have chatted.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
been around the same block a couple times.
Yep, absolutely. I grew up there when the Bills had the 4 Super Bowls that they couldn't pull off.
Yeah.
I tell everybody I left right after that. I'm done. It happened to be the same year.
The heartbreak can't take it anymore.
Yeah.
So you moved down here after high school.
Yep.
Did you then go to college?
For about 7 minutes. As soon as
Really?
I found out that I wasn't going to have a baseball career, I showed up for one class in college. Didn't go so great, and I actually started looking for a job. I was working at a restaurant right up here in Chandler called Rigatoni's. It was, I don't know if you know where that's at, Arizona Avenue and Knox. I was working there as a busboy, and a guy walked in one day and kind of introduced myself. I was a busboy. I'm a 17-year-old kid at this time and doing the deal. And he said, you know anything about cars? I said, no, I don't know anything about cars. What's up? And he's like, you seem like you got a personality that could get into the car business. And I go, well, is that what you do? And he's like, yeah. And he shows me, and they were mowing and leveling a lot right across. It still sits there today on the corner of Arizona Avenue and Knox.
Thoroughbred Chevrolet?
Nope, Automart Superstore.
Oh, okay.
So anybody that has known me for any period of time, I started working there when I was 17 years old.
Oh, wow.
I stocked in the first car, and I bought the dealership. So the very first business I ever worked for, I owned. It took me about 14 years, but I got my first paycheck, and it was a lot. And I didn't tell my parents that I had quit school. I didn't tell them until I'd worked there for almost 9 months, and I had set a number where I'm like, okay, if I can do this, and again, I'm 18 years. Then by this time, I'm 18 years old, and I'm like, if I can do this, then I'll let them know. But I don't want to, and they're back in New York, so it's like I'm on my own. And so I'm like, man, I was lying to everybody that I'm going to school and I'm slinging cars.
Yeah.
Right? And at that point, I get my first check and I realize, oh, I can do this. And so I'm about to let my parents know that there's a big party at the end of the year and I'm going to bring them out and do that. But in doing so, I'm getting this money. Again, an 18-year-old shouldn't make the kind of money I'm making. And so I go to the guy, I go, listen, I don't need that much money. I go, how about you give me, and at the time, he's $3,000 a month. And this is 1995. I'm making $3,000 a month. I got no bills, so I'm riding high.
Yeah.
Well, I'd made almost $90,000 that year. So I said, why don't I just invest in this dealership? Came to me one day, and he slid over this certificate. And he said, congratulations, you own 5% of this place. Now, I'm 19. At this time, I'm 19 years old, making all this money. And I ended up buying the entire dealership. Just full disclosure, automartsuperstore.com. You go on. I was coined Crazy Tracy, and I was the face of the car dealership from that day forward.
No kidding.
That was my story.
Incredible.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So growing up let's go back to New York.
Sure.
Did you have brothers and sisters?
No, none that I knew. I was an abandoned kid. I was raised by my grandparents. And I get into that in the book, that I find out that I had, when I was 45 years old, I find out I have daddy issues. I was and again, not to go into the book too much, but I found out, again, in this healing journey, that a lot of my root problems go back to, and actually some of my successes, what story I just told you about Automart, ultimately becomes my desire to win. If a trophy's involved, like they had Salesman of the Month trophies, and I polished them every day. Every month I won, I put it up, another trophy. And it goes back to this idea of wanting my dad to come pick me back up. At the age of 6 months, he left me at my grandparents' house after Christmas and never came back. And my mom ended up getting in some trouble. And from that moment, I don't think that I ever recognized it. When I talk to people about that, I don't recognize that as trauma. I look back at that and go, wow. But I can tell you that I say vividly, but I can hear my grandmother saying something like, you're just like your father, or, maybe that's why he left you, right? That kind of language that, again, I think we hear that all the time, and you'll never amount to anything like your father. Like you hear those type of behaviors, so you're doing everything you can to outrun them, outpace them, prove them wrong, right? And then again, have my dad pick me back up. If I make enough money,
he'll come back.
Oh yeah, my dad or people will.
He'll see me on the news,
right?
Show up,
right? He'll show up, right? I'll be enough, and I think that's again, part of my addiction story is really based on the foundation of wanting more of everything. Right. And I like to say today that you can never get enough of something that will never be enough. Right. That's such and it's a powerful statement because it's everything. It's sex, it's drugs, it's money, it's a fancy car, it's, the gambling, endorphins. If I hit that slot machine for X amount, if you hit that slot machine for X amount, you're probably going to pull the lever again.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Right. That's exactly right.
I mean, I did it once, I can do it again.
Absolutely. Yeah. More.
So just to throw this out there, Tracy's got a book called Addict No More, A Real Journey Through Darkness that he wrote. How long ago did you write that?
It just has been released. I just got my stuff came out. My press release just came out in the Associated Press today.
Nice.
And my publisher just let me know that Barnes & Noble reached out, so I'll be doing a signing at Barnes & Noble.
Awesome.
And so it's really just catching. It's just starting out. So
perfect.
You can.
We're on the front end of this.
Yeah,
so
you guys are going to be on the ground floor.
I knew you when you just released your first book.
Right, yeah, exactly.
So Addict No More, A Real Journey Through Darkness. We'll reference this a few different times of conversation today. So grew up in New York, moved to Arizona when you were 18, gave up on baseball.
Sure.
I shouldn't say gave up.
Yeah.
You stopped
playing
baseball.
Yeah.
Stopped playing baseball. Started working at the car dealership.
Yep.
This episode of Above and Beyond is brought to you by the amazing sponsors who help bring this show to life. A heartfelt thank you to Above Par Network, elevating connections and creating impact. Foundation Insurance Services, protecting what matters most with confidence and care. Meritum Credit Card Processing, empowering businesses through expert consulting and unwavering support. And Rocks Ink Calligraphy, bringing beauty and personal flair to every handwritten detail. We're proud to partner with these outstanding businesses who share our passion for excellence. For more about our sponsors and exclusive podcast content, visit abovebeyondpodcast.com.
I mean, there's a gap in there. Okay, so you're 19 years old. You're working your butt off, making good
A
money.
lot of money. Yeah. Well,
What was the first car you owned? I'm just curious. First car.
1996 Toyota 4Runner. It was the first car I bought after I got the dealership. So after I'd, kind of had some successes. It's funny. I want to say I made $150,000 in 1997.
Wow.
As a 19-year-old, and I couldn't qualify for a car because I had no credit. And again, I'd put this money away, so I'm buying the dealership, and I've got like a $3,000 a month, $4,000 a month.
All this money in the bank.
And they couldn't do it. My aunt had to co-sign for me.
No kidding.
Yeah, it was funny because I remember going down and buying the car from Mitch, and it was great because you're just like, oh yeah, I know he makes a lot of money, and then the banks, we're not giving him a loan, and it was so awesome.
Okay, so that was your first car.
Yeah.
Have you owned your dream car, or what's your dream car?
Don't even know. It's crazy. It became one of those, I don't know what you call it, numb to cars. I had owned, if I go through it now, I would say that I've owned hundreds of cars, and I don't think I see any value in them. I remember the movie, if you remember the movie Ronin, Robert De Niro pulls up, and he said something about an S8 in the movie. And I didn't know what it was. The next weekend, me and my partner went and bought one of each. And we had the fastest Audis that should have been allowed on the planet, 460 horsepower. This is a crazy car.
Incredible.
And then I was just like, well, there's got to be something else, Ferraris and all that. Porsches, they don't even do anything for me. I'm just like getting them. And now I own an artificial turf business, and so I got a pickup truck. I've owned every car that you can think of for every wrong reason and every right reason. But I'm definitely that guy that's going to have the yellow car just because I'm 50. Yeah, I'm 50 years old, and I might as well have a yellow car.
Well, it's funny. I've never been attracted to Corvettes. The new body style of the Corvettes. I'm kind of like, oh, that's kind of nice looking. I'm thinking, oh shit, I'm
right
getting
now. You now have hit the stereotype where you're like, yep, exactly. You're like, yep, I know what it means. Right?
I've never found those cars attractive, and now I'm like, oh, that's kind of nice looking.
Let me get one of those.
Yeah. So, not going to be my midlife crisis. No, it'll be a pickup truck, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But okay, so working in a car dealership, living in Chandler.
Yep.
Okay. And do you still own the dealership?
So we sold in 2010. The quick button here is this is when, and part of it is referenced in the book, but in 1996, I'm selling cars, and a guy comes to me and he says, you know how you could sell more cars? I go, well, you tell me. And he says, this stuff right here will help you sell more cars. Well, he introduced me in 1996 to cocaine. And so cocaine and the car business run synonymous. Like, it's just part of the way it is, right?
Gotcha.
Well, I had some good mentors, and I had some guys. And again, it's under control. I'm just keeping it so I can keep the energy going for the day. And I've already got plenty of it, so I'm pushing it well into the hours. Well, a guy comes to me and he says, you know what you should do? He says, you probably should, find a girl. I've been dating a woman that's now my wife. And, you probably should settle down. Otherwise, you're going to blow through all this money. You're going to ruin your life. You don't want to, turn out like this guy. So I get married in 1998, and my wife and I, buy some houses, or got our first house, get another house, all that sort of stuff. Have our twin daughters in 2001, and I'm still running that car dealership empire. But right there is the beginning of this. Everybody asks, hey, when did this story start? Might have started when my dad left me, in 1977. Might have started in 1996 when I picked up cocaine for the first time, and I realized, ooh, that feels pretty good.
Yeah.
And
so out of curiosity, and if I ask you a question that you don't want to answer, please feel
there's
free.
no question you're ever going to ask me that I don't want to answer.
Because I am curious, and I guess my propensity is to be a little bit on the fearful side.
Sure.
Right? That first time when you were had you ever done anything before that?
No, I'm a drinker. I started drinking at an early age.
Which, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
It's totally different.
Right. But then you go into blow.
Right. Straight in. Yeah.
Literally dumps it on the counter in front of you, and you're like,
oh, yeah. Well, and again, it was behavioral, right? Like, it's in the car business. Well, yeah, everybody's doing it, right? You see the movie like Wolf of Wall Street, and you think, no chance. I'm telling you that there were guys coming in who wanted access to, let's say, trade-ins, so that they go, hey, can we go look at the trade-ins? You look at them, what do you got for me? The guy's pulling out an 8-ball. This is how we're finding favor with you. And I remember Rick Smith coming in the first time, and I go, get the hell out of here. And another guy comes in, and he saw it, and he's, oh, okay. So that's how we get in the door. So he comes in with a bottle of vodka. Now, you got to understand, we're talking the light of day. This is not around the corners of my, this is not the dark recesses of my life. I'm getting a handle of vodka and an 8-ball of cocaine put on my desk. We're doing lines, again, 7:30 in the morning. You want to sell some cars? I know we sell some cars. And everybody's good. And again, it's all under the false pretenses of, this will make us more, I'm going to say energy, right? And it's fine. You're just doing a couple lines. You're not going crazy. But here's what I found out is that drugs and alcohol, kept me awake for a while. And then they also kind of numbed out pain in life. Right? Gotcha. So frustration, right? Mm-hmm. But I find out that they numb out a wife that's on my nerves, kids that have pissed me off, right? Yeah. So I get farther into life, and this becomes a habit that's not really leaving me, again, behind the dumpster, right? This is not making me homeless. I'm not selling my wife's purses to get blow. I'm just taking medication. Yeah. Right? In this case, I'm just feeding this fear almost, or, this pain is really what it comes down to is I'm not successful enough. I haven't made enough money. Like, I've got to make more. So that fear of failure is influenced by that. And I don't feel that pain. And that's when you go back to what does it feel like? It feels like I can run through that wall, right? I can do anything, right? And under any sorts of addictions, I think that's where it starts is one day it healed a pain, right? Yeah. And I talk about any of the foods where you put a food in your body and like that relationship doesn't feel that bad all of a sudden, right? And you're like, ooh, will that fix my financial pain? It can for a minute. You got financial problems. You got financial problems,
but
right?
You don't think about it.
No, for the next couple hours.
It's like after a long day, you're pissed off. You've had to deal with shitty clients. And you're like, we just have a vodka tonic. I'm good.
Yeah. Nobody is taking that first drink, that first line, that first gambling, that first slot machine hit. Yep. They're not having that scandalous relationship. They're not doing it thinking, I'm going to ruin my life. They're doing it like for a minute. And that might be a Friday afternoon. Yep. It might be a weekend. I'm just going to escape. Yeah. The problem is that unchecked, right? And it becomes an escape for everything. Yep. And today, I'm healed from addiction from drugs and alcohol, right? Like cocaine and vodka are not my vice. This is probably, if you ask my wife or ask my people that are close to me, this is my addiction.
Talking about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I want to write a book. Now I want a movie. Now I want, right? So the excess, the chase of more is something that I reflect on a regular basis. I talk about on a regular basis. The problem is that my story, whether you're talking about, my business successes, my relationships, my addictions, all that is not unique. My story is not unique. Success, none of that is unique. Yeah. What is unique and why I am tailoring a message that says I will talk to anyone is because I'm willing to speak about it. Yeah. I'm willing to say, this guy, this, middle-aged, white, American, good side of the tracks, money, cars, family, you name it. There's nothing I don't have access to. I just told you, I'm on the center field at Dodger Stadium last weekend. Yeah. Right? I have access to everything I want in the world, and I still want more. Yeah. And left unchecked, that can become a problem, right? So I have to be willing to speak about it for me, right? And then the guy or gal that hears me say that and goes, hey, what is it for you? Yeah. Right? And I ask everybody, you've got a wall of names over here of people that I know that you're going to have on your show or have on your show. What is it for you? Yeah. Right? Is it a business card? If you think if you get that job, if you think if you make enough money, then you'll arrive, and I go, it falls under the same premises of you'll never get enough of something that will never be enough. Yeah. Right? No title, no status, no girl, no car, no house. None of that stuff is ever going to fill the void, and it's now what I recognize is a search for love. And that's what my dad left void is I want love, right? And sometimes I think I compromise sex for love. Yep. I project winning a check as love. It's not. This house is not.
Landed this client. Yeah. And now I feel love because they chose me.
Right. And then if they don't, they're the son of a bitch. Right. It's not me and my behavior that, warrants maybe going with some other company or doing business with somebody else. Yeah. What did I do wrong? And then the bad part or the dark part of that is that I start reflecting on what did I do wrong? How can I people please? Yeah. Right. And as I put myself in that cycle of, my husband's not happy, my wife's not happy. Okay, what do I got to do to make them happy? Well, let me chase more. And if I chase more and then they still don't love me, maybe I start looking somewhere else for that.
Yeah.
And if my kids reject me, maybe I react in anger, right? Like I start treating them like, hey, you're not doing it right. I know better. Like that sort of talk and language starts coming out of your mouth, all because what I really want you to say is I love you.
Yeah.
And my book is filled with stories of love because that's what we're yearning for. And some of the beauty in my journey is recognizing love in this room. We just met. I don't want to be anywhere else in the world right now.
Yeah.
Right? You could not talk me into it.
Yeah.
Like I'm preparing my mind and my spirit for that all day long so that I can ignite our conversation, give maybe a listener a little bit of hope, but also it puts me on a path of being that guy throughout my day.
Yeah.
I didn't become a better guy because I put down drugs and alcohol. I became more alive, more aware, and I start seeing, maybe I should say something to my daughter that's like, how's things? What's going on?
Yeah.
Right? And all of a sudden I start having, and I tell everybody, I now have the longest coffees and lunches of anybody in the world.
That's
Why? Because I'm not rushed.
Yeah.
I care about what you're saying, right? And I'm happy. And again, some of it's addiction's easy for me to talk about, but I sit now with people about business. Young kids that I'd have no time for mentoring.
Yeah.
Or golf. I'm a golfer, and so when I'm golfing, hey man, could you just look at my swing a little bit and tell me what you think? Like I have no time for that kid when I'm in the grip of addiction, or if I'm drunk, I'm chasing my buzz.
Yeah.
But now I stop and go, let me take a couple swings. Let me see. What happens is, he gets a smile on his face. His mom sees a happier kid. That house looks different, and that circle of life starts coming around. And again, if it's just my orbit that changes, I'm okay with that. But as people start reflecting on their own journey, I think what they're going to see is the pursuit of joy and happiness and love are much more fulfilling, one, with other people, but long-term more rewarding than anything that money can buy and anything that I'm in search of.
Yeah.
Right? Because I can carry that with me.
Yeah.
I said, I loved our time. I'm going to leave here and I'm going to say, Jan, I loved our time together.
Yeah.
I just met you. You haven't given me anything. They're not paying me. I'm not paying you. And we're in this relationship for this next, hour or whatever. And we're going, wow, why? How could that be a good time? Because I was fully there.
Yeah.
And I find myself in that a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. It's inspiring. It really is because, you think about, I mean, I guess I take myself down that path, right? Where you feel like, not to go all psychology 101 on us here, but, you start going down that path where it's, we want to be appreciated. We want to be accepted. Do we do more every day for the external, intrinsic, whatever that is, the value that we're getting from that situation, whether it's a drink or somebody telling us how amazing we are or whatever it is, So that is incredible. You said you got married in 98?
Yep, 98.
Okay, and same,
Yep.
Okay.
Still with my wife. We're going to be celebrating. This is our 30th year together. Okay. So we've been married for 27 years coming up. Our daughters are 23. On August 2nd, I'll be giving away my first daughter, my first of my twins, namesake, Autber. I wrote this name with a pseudonym for my daughters, Autumn and Amber, and so Amber is getting married on August 2nd,
nice,
2025.
My daughter just got married in February. It's a pretty cool honor.
Yeah, so I'm stoked. And again, I write the first chapter of my book from my deathbed, and its perspective is written under the guise of, I knew this wedding was happening, and I started writing this book after I knew that, and so it was the only way I could see fit. And I talk about Amber's wedding, in this scenario being years prior, right? Like it's a long way back.
Yeah.
And I end the first chapter by talking about every good moment, every story shared, every opportunity that I have with my kids and my grandkids and other people that I might be able to mentor in people goes back to one very specific date, and that's January 3rd, 2021, which was the last day I ever drank or did a drug and ever will. Yeah. And so I go back to that moment where I go, man, the only way I'm here right now with you is because of that day. Yeah. And every single time I start thinking of the opportunity and the gift that today is, and today is just that, a gift, right? And so if I look at it as that, I start realizing that, man, I got to pour every ounce of my energy into today.
Yeah.
Right. And some days that is as dad, right? Some days and men we're maybe geared to be providers, right? And as women, trying to run a business, and we're saying, man, I got to do this and show my family, what a good person I am. I get that. That's a mindset that I can't say I'm against. I'm just saying, like, unchecked, and again, over a long period of time, if that's the driving force behind who you are, someday your kids are going to look at you and go, I never wanted that.
Yeah.
I wanted love.
Yeah.
Right. And love can look like, again, sitting on the end of a bed, right, in a sucky apartment, right, and showing love. And it can also look like $1 million house and a fancy car.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. But I want my daughter on this day, on August 2nd, to know that I'm there for her.
Yeah.
Right. I'm here for this moment. Like, no matter how fancy the wedding is, no matter who comes, no matter how many times we screw up her special dance, no matter any of that, like, I'm here. And I want her to know that. And anybody that's in my, friend circle and family to know that, I want to be here for you. And I mean that. So anytime I can have the opportunity to sit down with somebody like you, or just somebody at, my local restaurants or the golf course or whomever, I tell everybody that I want to fully be here. And as a golfer, I went through the motions, a low handicap golfer that, man, I carded in 2000. I probably carded, I think it was just over 300 rounds. So I played over 300 rounds of golf, running a pretty successful business, and just going through the motions. Like, golf was party, right? So I'm just drugs, alcohol, loud music, fun. It's going to be fun, right? And I'm putting up quotation marks because that's the guides I use. This is fun.
Yeah.
Pretty soon, I started to realize after I got sober that I didn't like golf as much as I did then. So I've carded way less, I don't play as much golf, but every time I do, I'm not asking where we're playing, how much it is, any of that. I ask who's playing. And I just golfed with Karen, one of the APN execs.
Karen Gadberry.
Yeah, Karen Gadberry, execs. And she was blown away by the idea of who. Like, and thinking, I'm going to gift you. And I'm gifting you an hour right now, and I'm gifting them, let's say it's 4 hours on the golf course.
Right.
This right now, in that 4 hours I'm talking about with Karen, is one of the last hours of my life. And if you sit and think about things like that, now I don't want to look at it morbidly, but I go, what are you giving
profound.
You're giving your energy in one of your last days of your life to, and again, if it's pornography, gambling, a sports game, golf itself, like a relationship, are you willing to exchange that energy, that time, for what you would call one, again, of your last of those? I really want to go to, I just went to Alaska. I wouldn't do that again ever. Right? I go, there was moments there, but it was awful. And I look back at it and go, man, I wish I wouldn't have given Norwegian Cruise Line not money. Money, it wasn't a thing. My time.
Your time.
My book, if you see the cover of my book, hopefully it shows up somewhere.
Yeah.
But like, it's got all of my afflictions on the table with the timer, right?
Yeah.
And I wrote on here that this book explores the importance of determining how we spend each moment that we are gifted. And it says, and this is some of my quotes that I've come up with, but it says, all lives will one day be reduced to a couple of dates separated by a simple punctuation. Consider today what your dash will represent.
Yeah.
For 25 years and maybe a lifetime, I've never considered that. And today I go, at least today my dash was love. Today my dash was light. Today my dash was friendship, kindness, human care, whatever that is. And again, I can be successful in business.
And I think in those moments, that's what we are remembered for, ultimately.
Sure.
Right? You think back, whether it's a prior relationship or prior thing that you did, you remember the good times. It is harder to remember the bad times, although we hold on to those. When you were growing up, when you were in high school, before you moved out to Arizona, and you were playing baseball, was there somebody there that was, you grew up with your grandparents, right? So was there somebody through school that was more of a influence, father figure for you? Was it your grandparents, or was there somebody there that...
Wow, that's a question I haven't had to ask in a long time. And I come to one name. My high school baseball coach saw something in me. I would give him a lot of credit for my early successes. I was an all-county baseball, I'm a top school. We're a big baseball school program, but I'm a multi-sport athlete. Growing up, your point guard, your shortstop, and, your quarterback, right? I'm that guy. And so I grew up in a small school. I knew, here's when you say the driving force, I knew I didn't want to turn out like my grandfather. So more of the opposite. And most of my life, like I would say, I feel like I was always destined for more. And so you start doing things like trying to win and it starts it's funny where it starts. Mine started in a math class. I'm super good at math, basic, multiplication. And remember the flashcards where they would do the flashcards? I have a near photographic memory, but I'm super good at that. And I won. And for the first time, Miss Humphreys was her name, gave me something for winning. I remember it. I remember her pulling out a jar, and it might have been in 3rd, 4th grade, but I remember her pulling out a jar and letting me pick out something because I won. And the win was if you could make it around the world, if you could beat everybody. I went home that day and remember vividly like not going to sleep that night doing multiplication cards. If you pulled out multiplication, I can just see it. I see multiplication like vividly, like almost beautiful mind. And I go, in that moment, I realize that if I can win at something, I hit my love button, right? And then I go, I want more of that. And if I don't get that at home, right, and I say I'm destined for more and I should get more appreciation. I didn't grow up in an appreciative household, a little abuse. So, some of the things that you go, nothing crazy, but you go, oh, that's kind of ugly. I go, I can't wait to leave here. So the driving force is not ending up like my grandfather, who worked at the same factory for 42 years till the day he died. Yeah. And so it's one of those where you go, ooh, I don't want to be that. And then my high school baseball coach, Chuck Sennett, was in 7th grade. And I remember him telling me, and this is when I realized I was born to be a salesman. If you work hard, you'll definitely can make the team. I was a scrawny kid, and he said, you're going to have to work harder. Some of these kids are faster than you, and some of these kids have, and he leaned in and he said, they have more money than you. Yeah. And I said, wow. I go, does that matter? I'm pretty good, right? Yeah. And he's, yeah, but, baseball can be expensive, and, we go on these trips and we go on these clubs. And I said to him, well, what do I have to do, right? What do I have to do, basically, to get your love? Yeah. And he told me, he said, sell Tony's Pizzas. I don't know if you to know, Tony's Frozen Pizzas is a little business in upstate New York. I said, well, how many do I got to sell to make this first, and I say, get a glove, get a whatever, I got a glove, but whatever the stuff that he's talking about that I don't have in my life. He says, we'll sell, I think if you sell 100 pizzas, it'll pay for your, your entry fee for this tournament. This will pay for your, transportation, whatever the things are, right, for the club team. And I'm going, okay, I'll do that. I went door to door, and he tells me I got to sell 100 pizzas. So I go back in his office, and I went around that weekend, and I sold some pizzas. And I ask him, and it's been a driving force in my entire life. I go, how many do I have to sell to pay for the whole year? Like, he's talking about one trip, sell 100. And he goes, ooh, and he does the math, and he goes, you're going to have to sell 1,000 pizzas. Now, understand, I graduate a class of 77 kids in my graduating class in upstate New York. I'm in a little small town outside of Buffalo. Small town outside of Buffalo, New York. And 1,000 pizzas sold in 2 weeks.
No kidding.
Right. And because you want to know why? Because I wanted it. And I put every ounce of my energy into getting that person who's buying this shitty cardboard frozen pizza. Yeah. I remember them backing up the truck at the high school and the smile on his face. And it gets me emotional to think, like, in that moment, I had won. Yeah. Like, I got something, like his joy, his smile was something that I'm probably pursuing from the people at the, the restaurants I still go to, right? The relationships I still have. I want that smile that says, wow, well done. Yeah. You're a good guy. Yeah. Congrats. I like you. All of those things come through the smile. Right. Even now I'm sitting here looking at you and I go, I want Jan to like me so much, so I better bring the energy. And again, fuels kind of that addiction. But when you have somebody do that, he became Team Tracy. He was actually a math teacher in high school. So my math, I'd picked up from Miss Humphreys and picked out my first candy out of the bowl, carried right on. He ended up being a math teacher, and he was he's still the winningest coach in New York State history. He's like something like 700 wins. Wow. He's a high school baseball coach. Yeah. He coached a team for, 40 years, and we always were putting up numbers, state champions several years. And it was one of those where you go, like, he was the driving force behind just success. Yeah. Right? Like, my first win in his eyes, in his smile, I knew that I had won. Yeah. But thank you for asking that question, because I rarely go back to that moment. I can tell you about all the ugly, and I can tell you about and I wrote about a lot of ugly and bad in my book. I don't talk about some of those driving forces behind the people in my mentor in the car business. It's the same thing. On his deathbed, he said probably one of the nicest things anybody's ever said about me. And he said, it was kind of a little sad because he said in front of his kids, but he looked at me and he said, you're the best thing I ever created. Wow. Because he made me. And again, it was a gift, but for years, I tried to live up to his expectation.
I have somebody in my life that's the same coach, right. Wrestling coach. And it's funny because I was the same. I was quarterback of the football team. I was wrestler. I wasn't a very good basketball player. At least I didn't think I was. So I wrestled. And then I played baseball, but then I stopped playing baseball and started playing golf after my sophomore year.
Nice.
Going into my junior year, now just like stuff that was going on at home. Or not at home, but between my dad was a coach and the high school coach. They didn't get along, whatever. But it's interesting because I was a good athlete. Looking back now, I think I was a lot better than I thought I was, right? I wrestled in college. I was offered a partial scholarship to play football in college.
Oh, nice.
And didn't take it because I thought I wasn't good enough and thought it was too far away from home. I'd never get back home. But my wrestling coach in high school, who happened to be he was in my wedding.
Oh, nice.
To my first wife. He is still, when I go back home to visit my parents, one of the people I have to stop and see. He is such a profound person, but he was one of the people that I can remember him looking at me and saying, you have it in you. You just got to let it out. You got to let it out. And you are good. You're better than any of these guys. He's the reason. He is the reason. So it's awesome to hear you say that because it's such a rewarding, fulfilling thing. People used to tell me, oh my God, you should be a coach or a teacher. And I think I would love that. I'd love to have that type of influence on kids. I would just be afraid I'd punch some kid. I'd be like,
right, I don't got the patience for this.
No, some kid just mouth off to me. I'd be like, yeah, you're done.
Right.
I'd be in jail somewhere.
Right, exactly. That's funny.
But that's awesome. I mean, I will tell you, it's so cool to hear that. So you come here, you start selling cars. Some jackalope comes and tells you, hey, to sell more cars, you need to play in the snow.
Yeah. Let's just powder your
whatever
nose.
it is you call it.
Yeah. Take one of these. Take a little taste of this.
Yeah.
I remember him saying that.
So your wife, I mean, was she there with you? I mean, she'd basically say, you're a dumbass. What the hell are you doing?
Actually could not have probably known worse. She struggled with the book. She struggles with my even speaking. She's heard me, I speak around the world. I've been on a couple shows in London and speaking some shows in Sweden and, just really had a lot of impact. You've talked about it in the opening. She struggles with it because she didn't know. And I masked, again, it's not like a guy coming home and being belligerent. I'm just a little louder, a little funner, right? A little too much.
So she
drinking.
was seeing it every day and that's just you.
Yeah, that's just me.
Were.
Yeah. That's just me. And again, my usage probably, it climaxed certainly, probably about 5 years before I quit. But it was one of those progressive uses. It's not, I don't call it a disease anymore. I don't believe in the disease model, but I believe that I continued to numb these pains. And in doing so, like, I just numb out like who I really am. So my vibrancy, maybe at home in a relationship, is just, well, I guess that's who they are, right? If you see somebody and they're high, like if you, like they're on weed and you just look at them and just be like, oh, that guy's kind of a loser, he's slow or whatever. Like you can kind of see it. With Coke and uppers, you just are kind of either a little extra, right? And I'm still extra, or you're just like, okay, settle down, relax. So in these right atmospheres, I'm able to put the pony back in the barn. I've led men's ministries in multiple churches,
really,
under the influence.
Wow,
multiples. I don't want to say any of their names, and they know who they are. But these places where we have a thriving men's group at 2 churches that I've pastored at, thriving youth program at multiple churches, and people are like, "Wow, you're so dynamic. You're so this," and I'm going like, "Wow." Well, and again, the fake. The falsehood, the shell of myself, the fraud is that, just before I got here, I ripped a couple of lines, did a shot, and now we're good to go. Give me the microphone. Let me rock your world. Right? And you're going like, my wife, not knowing, so you say, hey, does she not know? Yeah, she knows I'm probably a drunk. I probably drink too much. She probably asked me to be, and I used to say, what percentage of sober? You're doing the halftime show tonight at the girls' game, like for my girls played high school basketball. I'm doing the halftime show at the girls' game. Yeah, you're doing that tonight. Can you make sure you're sober? Well, I mean, let's not get crazy. Like what percentage? Like how much sober, right? And those type of influences that became part of her life. And to this day, I truly believe, and again, I have the personality for it, and I like it, the microphone, I like the bright lights. I truly believe that my wife has a purpose and a story that is far greater than mine, right? A wife that should have left. I told her the other day, she's the best thing that I've ever said yes to. Right? She's the best thing that's ever happened in my life. And no matter what happens in our relationship, I will always look back and know that by her sticking by my side, by her fighting to, keep our family together. And part of me believes that the dynamic is, I'm making money, like I don't want to upset the apple cart. I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe she's protecting me. Maybe she's protecting the kids. Just keep the family together, keep the girls away from me, whatever that looks like, right? And again, it's not always me breaking plates and busting down doors. It's like just the average day-to-day stuff where you're like, Dad's just a little loud tonight. Dad doesn't feel good, right? Because I'm also really good. I only had a hangover about 3 times. In my life. And that's based on
just keeping it going.
Part of it's just keeping it going, and then understanding like what that looks like. I have sleep problems. So when I, shut it down, like I don't feel bad the next morning. Well, not feeling bad the next morning and having no arrests, no DUIs, no trouble with the law. Like all that stuff allows me to keep that going for way too long.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm getting away with it. Nobody at church sees me like, oh, maybe my wife protected me from my kids. I didn't piss her off enough to leave yet.
Yeah.
Right. So I hold it together in such a way that allows, my marriage to stay, the status on Facebook to still stay married. But my wife has to hate me at points, and I talk about at the end of my, the end of my relationship with drugs and alcohol, I was separated from my friends, my faith, my family, and all of the finances, of course. But most importantly, I was separated from myself.
Yeah.
And in those moments, like if I can't be true to me, I guarantee I'm not a good husband. So my wife got a horrible husband and I was a bad dad. The reality is those relationships are, being restored with my daughters, and, there's still struggles at my house with my wife, and there's still, troubles that we're going through that I go, man, the worst thing in the world is not necessarily that I'm no longer part of your life or you're part of my life. The worst possible thing is that we're not happy.
Yeah.
If we can't be or if we're not happy, then there's no point, right? There's no joy in this house. Again, carrying on that status, and we carried it on for some years.
Yeah.
And and again, I thank God every day for her that she stuck, because I would be dead if I didn't have to be there at 3. Like she made sure I was there at 3. I guarantee she told me 3, and it really was 3:30 because she knew I wouldn't show up till 4. That's that type of relationship, and she protected again my daughters from just maybe getting in the car, just those things that I know that my wife did for years that, again, kept our marriage together on paper, but certainly damaged, her at her core, the things that we do. And I think there's part where I talk about the book, The Last Day I Drank. There's a song by Johnny Cash, and it says, God's going to cut you down. And the words go something like, you can go on for a little while, but sooner or later, God's going to cut you down. My cut down day was January 3rd, 2021, but he was cutting it because all this thing you did in the dark, one of the lines is, all the things you do in the dark will one day be brought to the light, right? And I'm bringing it to the light for a lot of people, but I'm bringing it to the light from this position of I couldn't hide in the darkness from myself.
Yeah.
That's who I was running from. This version of, making my father come back and say he loved me, making my wife, making her like me enough to stick around one more year, right? And people, I believe, I see them every single day, and I know that they're out here. I know that they're listening, and I know that, I would say billions of people. I don't know how many people are on this earth, but I know that there's millions and millions of people every day that are struggling with some type of affliction that another person can help them through. A friend of mine, Ed Milet, said, you're most qualified to help the person you used to be. So if you're a divorced person and you're struggling how to move on with your life, or if you're a foster kid, if you're a sexually abused person, if you're a drug addict, you're most qualified to help that person. I happen to be qualified in this particular mode or this particular lane because I've been there.
Yeah.
I've been in the recesses of darkness. Mm-hmm. I've been in the dark corners of my life where, I'm probably just another shot or line of being dead. My addiction ends in the fentanyl era. Mm-hmm. And I know lots of people that have died of overdose. They took one line and that was enough. They took one pill, and here I am, a testament to not just recovery, but life.
So the curiosity.
Yeah.
You mentioned that cocaine and vodka were your
mistresses.
Yes. Did you ever explore outside of that?
Everything. I'm in everything.
Okay.
I actually would speedball on a regular basis. It killed Heath Ledger. I think Philip Seymour Hoffman. You can look that up. But that's basically taking an upper and a downer at the same time, just to see how what road would wind. I have a buddy who's no longer with us. His name is Dean, and Dean's go-to line was he knew I'd always have Coke on me, so I would bring the Coke, and he would pull out his hand, and his hand would be full of pills, and there'd be all colors and all sizes and all shapes. And his funny line, and I'm about to giggle, and it's just not funny, but he would look out of the corner. He says, "No, take a couple of those," and you just reach in and just pop it, and then he would go see what you took, and he'd go, "But not the blue one." That was what you just
the one you just took.
You just took. And he goes, "Not the blue one." And I go, "What?" And he goes, "Oh, hang on." But literally, dancing with the devil. And again, I'm watching news of people doing exactly what I'm doing. I'm on the golf course, dehydrated, drunk as shit, and doing Coke and Perk 30s. So you're doing Percocets, a downer, doing Coke upper, vodka number. You're chasing. And so for me, I've done everything. So I've done every single drug, heroin, I've done meth, I've done all of the drugs. And if meth wasn't so bad for my teeth, I would tell people, if you want to get something done, you do that. But the reality is that all these drugs and every single drug I've done, for a moment, quiets a voice, numbs a pain, and it's an escape, right? And I know people that have died and or became addicted to every single one of the drugs that I'm talking about because for a moment it healed them, made them feel safe, made them feel okay, made that pain. And that pain can be emotional, it can be spiritual, it can be physical pain, right? One of my best partners in recovery, a guy named Brock, he got hit by a car. They had shoulder surgery, and they put him, and it was normal for the time, they put him on Oxycontin. Oxys, they gave him, 30 Oxys, and, for shoulder pain, right? And it was, totally normal. And he realized after 30 of them that he didn't really need it anymore for his shoulder, but it also helped out with his wife. It also helped out with his financial, in his mind, right? Now I don't got financial problems. Now I don't got kid problems. Now I don't got all these other problems, so they help out. He turns to those as a complete number. And again, at functioning. So these aren't people that you're going to find in the streets. This guy's an active, he was active duty police officer at the time. And you're going oh my gosh, you know better.
Yeah.
Right? You know better.
Yeah.
And yet this has such a grip on you because in the moment it takes it all away. So to the person who's just popping the gummy and just having a couple of vodkas, right? Mm-hmm. That's all you're doing. You're not ruining your life. I go, but you are separating from yourself for the next, and it's 45 minutes. It's an hour. It's 2 hours. Whatever it is.
Yeah.
Are you willing to separate from you for that period of time and gift it to pornography? Are you willing to gift it to a job? We're exchanging every day for, hey, you give me X amount of dollars. You give me X amount of dollars because I'm giving you 8 hours of my energy, effort, sales, whatever I'm giving the company. Yeah. And I go in our personal lives and outside of those hours, are you doing with the time you've been gifted what you want to do? Right? So that's your listener. Your listener is guys that are successful. How do I make more money? Yeah. I guarantee that I go, hey, I can talk to you about making more money. What I can't tell you is how to make more happiness.
Yeah.
How to make more peace. I can't tell you how to do that. You have to discover that. And the book is riddled with these opportunities for you to look in the corners of your life, and they're mobile. Those joy buttons and things that caused me, I'm going to say, ambition or motivation, they're shifting. And these addictions and these behaviors, they're also shifting. Yeah. Right? So I got to be willing to do that self-reflection, not just one day back in January of 21. I've got to be willing to do that when I leave here and go, hey, was I on that show? Was I honest? Was I fair? Was I reasonable? Right? Was I truthful to me? Yeah. Did I say the things I wanted to say, and did I do them for the right reasons? So now I'm doing these speaking engagements in this book, and if you've ever wanted to write a book, you just can't make any money writing a book. I tell everybody, it's stupid. It's dumb from this sense if you want to do that. And I've got a publisher that's just pushing that because they make money off of me.
Oh,
right?
For sure.
Right? So my publishers, we need you to show up here, and I get my Amazon. And so everybody that's bought a book, I want to thank them for that. And I got a personalized one for Deb Sturpey. It's going to be going out tomorrow. Oh, but it's anybody that's bought a book, I get $1.63. So I get $1.63 every time somebody buys a book, because Jeff Bezos obviously has a business he needs to run, and my publisher needs money. So it's you'll never get a book. Books will never make you rich. But I'll tell you what, when I talk about my book, my heart is full because I think maybe, just maybe, there's somebody on the other end of the conversation, the other end of my words that say, that helped me to change my life.
Yeah.
Right? And I go, I can find that joy button with or without a book with another man or another woman who's in the midst of something they don't want to be part of their life anymore.
Yeah.
And I don't have any magics. I don't have any magic's potion. I don't have any fairy dust that I sprinkle over the situations of your life. I do have is experience.
Well, and inspiration, right? Because you've done it, right? So you have inspiration.
Right.
You have, call it the magic pill.
Right.
Because I think being in the situation, it's like I have drinks, cocktails, whatever.
Sure.
I'm sitting here thinking about myself. Oh, shit.
Am I that guy?
Oh, God, I need to go escape.
Right.
But, all joking aside, it's that whole thing where it's like I can see myself sometimes go, okay, yeah, you know what? I'm just going to I'll take a, pregame, quick shot.
Sure.
We'll go, takes the edge off.
Sure.
Allows me to let go of the whatever I'm thinking about from the day, So the inspiration and hopefully, with the book, and I'm going to go get it because I'm very curious to read it and I haven't, so I'm sorry, but I will.
It's fine.
But the whole thing that you have this captivating aura about you.
Thank you.
And I think that with your story, it can't help but help people. That's a weird sentence,
I like
but
that.
you know what I'm saying? So it's awesome. I mean, can I use the word infatuated
Sure.
by your story?
Thank you.
Well, it's a weird way to say it.
Yeah, we just met.
Right.
Can we go out on a couple of dates
Can
first?
we go to first base before we get all the way around?
You know that the foundation of inspiration, that's just something I've learned recently, I want to share it, is in spirit. The foundation of that word is spirit. Okay? So I'm going to go a little theology, a little everything in here for you, and you've talked about Psychology 101. Spirit is what is it's not an external force. A lot of people talk about, and again, AA talks about a spiritual experience. A lot of different people talk about the spirit of the, spirit outside, okay? And so the inspiration is actually not an outside force coming in. It's an inside force that's in all of us coming out. What had happened is that I had numbed that spirit. I had darkened that spirit. So, picture me sitting in the dark corners of my life, and whether that's cocaine, vodka, gambling, porn, again, all of the things, right? So I'm sitting in the dark corners of my life. My spirit is dead.
Yeah.
It's not alive. Yeah. And I've done that. I'm the one that has taken my inside spirit and I've just basically masked it, right? And now I don't feel anything. I am so inspired. And I talk about the book about babies' laughter and Arizona sunsets. Yeah. And not in spirit, right? If I'm not in connection with myself, if I'm not alive, I don't freaking see that.
Yeah.
And now you can't get the grin off my face. Yeah. I showed somebody an Arizona sunset the other night that was they're in a bad spot. And I said, will you just walk over here with me? And it was nothing. It's nothing. It's created every single day for us, in Arizona a lot more than most places.
Right.
But it's there every single day. And I said, just breathe that in
awesome.
for a moment.
Yeah.
And you go, do you feel a different way? And the reality is they do. And all I did was said, get out of, explore, and see what the world has to offer. And I'm going to read the other quote on the back of my book. I want to read this because this is why I did what I did. And it says, because of the absence of so many toxic habits, I now get to play the writer, director, and main character in the movie of my life.
That's awesome.
So if anybody that's listening goes, hey, what is the book about, but what is life? That's what life about is. I want to play the main character. Yeah. I want to play the director. That means that when I leave this scenario, what am I going to do tonight? I've got a daughter cooking me dinner. I talk about the opportunities that were given me by my kids, like saying, hey, will you go to the driving range with me?
Yeah.
Right? I'm alive and I'm awake and I'm aware to all of those sorts of opportunities. And sometimes that's helping out another human being, which I love. Sometimes it's just me taking in my own life and looking at, man, what a gift it is that I maybe have some things that I have that I take for granted every single day.
Well, and take it away from the situation that you came out of, because I think that there's something so much more profound, and not to belittle what you're saying, but we hear people all the time talk about, well, I grew up in poverty, or I grew up with this, or I am a product, whatever the label is, right? before you and I started the podcast, we were chatting a little bit. So I went to college, dropped out of school because I didn't know what I wanted to do for a little bit. I will say lived on the beach in San Diego for 3 months.
Oh, fun.
Okay. Buddy of mine and I, we were fighting forest fires. We ripped the back seat out of his Toyota Corolla.
Nice.
Or maybe it was a Corona. One of the two.
Right.
Ripped the back seat out of it, put a camper box in the back, headed to San Diego. Had enough money in the glove box for gas to get home. And then it was like, okay, we're not touching that money because that'll get us home, and whatever. What I learned in that short period of time, because I grew up in a small little town, northeastern Washington, everybody looked the same for the most part. But what I learned, and there was one guy very specifically that sticks out in my head, and we would be on the beach, and after a period of time, we probably started looking kind of homeless a little bit, scraggly, whatever. But there was a guy that I was talking to one day, and I was feeding pigeons on the beach peanuts that had fallen on the floorboard of the car from the month prior that were all stale. So I'm sitting there on the beach feeding pigeons.
Okay.
Right?
I'm visualizing it.
This guy walks up to me and he asks if he can have some. I'm like, you don't want to eat these. They're stale. He goes, but I haven't eaten in 3 days. I'm like, wow. But these are stale. I mean, they're really, he says, I don't care. He says, I will take them. He literally took a handful of peanuts from me, set them on, in San Diego, they've got the walls. Mm-hmm. So he set it on the wall and he sat there next to him for 3 hours with the peanuts on the wall, letting them heat up in the sun. And then he peeled them and ate them. And I went up to him and I talked to him and the conversation, I mean, it's been a long time ago, but it was something to the effect of, why are you here? Right? I mean, I'm a dumb kid.
Right.
Right? I'm like, why are you here? He says, I've got a buddy that I use his address for my mailing address. And the government sends me a check once a month. By the time we get to the end of the month, I'm out of money, so I can't eat at that point. He says, but if I go get a job, I'm going to make too much money and I won't make enough money to live, but I'll make too much money to get the check from the government. So I'll just collect the check. And of course, he's doing odd and end things, pimping himself and different things like that. But it was a very long conversation. But what it made me realize was we are all a product of our environment and what we grew up and experienced in that growth. And we can only make decisions based on what it was that we experienced, right? I can't make a decision for you on anything. But what you're saying to me right now, which is just speaking so deeply to me, is that the one thing that we have, especially here in America, not to go all mega or whatever, but the thing we have here in America, the freedom of choice. If your circumstances are not what you want them to be, you have the ability to make a choice to change it. Now, obviously, you get into drugs and that gets a hold of you, or the vodka and that gets a hold of you, all those different things that can get a hold of you. And you can make situational circumstances that keep you in that space. But I think more than anything, what is incredible to me about your story is the fact that there was a day that you just went, that's over.
Yeah.
And I need to move forward.
Yeah, I think turning the page in everybody's story, and that can be, for me, it's a very specific date, but I think I have to turn the page on yesterday. I like to say that if I don't like something about my yesterday and I want my tomorrow to be different, there's shit I got to do today.
Yeah.
Right?
Got to make a decision right now.
Right. You've got to make a decision.
And it's not going to be easy.
Oh, absolutely.
It is going to be harder than
fear is
anything you're going through.
Fear is such an enemy.
Yeah.
Fear is such an easy enemy to go, what if we don't?
Yep.
What if I don't?
Yep.
And the reality is so many people have fallen And again, you talk about sports athletes, you talk about anybody that has any sort of drive in their life, they had a failure.
Oh,
They
absolutely.
struck out, so
Michael
to speak.
Jordan.
Yeah,
I
talk
mean,
about
greatest story ever.
Right. He just I kept falling.
Yeah.
That's why I got back up.
Yeah,
Right, because I
right.
failed so many times. I got really good at failing.
Absolutely.
I remember in the car business, go back to that, the guy used to tell me, the guy said, this is the mathematics run. I told him, I said, I love math. Give me the math. And he said, here's what you're going to do. He said, in order to sell one car, you need to talk to 10 customers. He said, you talk to 10 customers. He said, 6 of them you try to get to drive a car. 3 to 4 of them, you sit down in an offer situation where, okay, hey, how much a month can you pay? How much you got down, like credits, all that sort of stuff. And he says, one of those will go through. Mm-hmm. And I said, wait a minute. So you're telling me that 9 out of 10 people aren't buying a car? That's the math. He said, yes. So I took that math and I spin it in my mind, and I still say this today, is thank God for the no, because that got me a lot faster to my yes.
Yep.
And I told a lot of people, thank you. The guy said, I'm not buying a car today. And I go, wow, that's great news.
Yeah.
What the hell? I've been to 5 dealerships, and I go, well, I've got to get 9 no's.
9 no's.
Today.
Yeah.
That's what my boss said, if I want to sell a car. Yeah. So when I take that to my life and I look at the opportunities for the no's, the fails, right? Like, it's failing so many days. Yeah. It's failing so many times.
90% of the time.
Right. If I'm failing 90% of the time, and I would venture to say, that not a lot of businesses are much different than that.
I mean, take it back to baseball.
Right.
I mean,
300's amazing.
Amazing.
Right.
And you were hitting 300.
Right. You're failing 7 times.
Amazing baseball player.
Right. You're failing.
You look at your guys, I mean, depending on how you set up your lineup, but 5, 6, 7.
Yeah.
Those guys are hitting
250, maybe.
Yeah. If they're lucky.
Right. That guy's getting it wrong 75% of the time. And so the mathematics of your life and it's funny, I wrote a chapter that's got a lot of math and equations, and it talks about the removal, and that I want people to be part of. And if anybody hears something today that's inspiring, this is kind of a simple one, is the people I surround myself with, I want them to be adders and multipliers, not subtractors and dividers.
That's awesome.
Right? So I'm looking for people that add and multiply to my life and my experiences. I don't want the people that subtract and divide. And if they do, they can't be on the bus of my life. They can't be in this movie, right? Forget the book. They can't be part of my movie of my life. And so every single day when you talk about choices, we get choices with, what we're going to wear, what we're going to eat, who we're going to spend our time with, where we're going to go. Like you've got a lot of choices, and you can really fail. And I tell a lot of people, you can fail on almost all of them if you're true to yourself. If at the end of the day, even if you had a really bad day, like I can look at my life and go, man, today was really rough.
Yeah.
And go, so what did you do? What do you do about those rough days? I go, I make corrections so I don't do those tomorrow, right? And all not drinking and drugging did was say like, hey man, don't do it tomorrow, and then don't do it the next day. Let's see if something gets better. People that were speaking into me, and I've got a final story that I have to share because he'll get mad at me if I don't, is that they just said, just don't do this for a while. And then if you want to go back to it, you always can.
Yeah.
You could always start using, start using again. One of the unique things, and we talked about him early in the show, and it didn't come up until right now in my brain, is in 2021. I have to give a lot of credit to one guy. The one guy who I wrote a chapter about, chapter 11, is about a guy named Sonny, and Sonny just passed this year, 52 years old, kidney failure, absolutely out of left field, passed. He saved my life, and the only thing that he did to save my life is he called one guy that he knew me. So we only have one in between. So that one guy, right, who you go, I say you're most qualified to help the person you used to be. He calls this guy and says, hey, you remember Crazy Tracy, don't you? Isn't the guy that knew me from the day? He said, I haven't talked to him in 20 years.
Oh, wow.
He goes, yeah, man, his life is in the grips of this thing. Well, I end up having lunch with him on January 3rd, 2021. And he just said, when I went to order his vodka tonic, I said, he'll have a vodka tonic and I'll have a mule. And he said, actually, I stopped drinking. My life had become chaotic. I said, you stopped drinking? I looked at him I was like, you still do some ball? I got a ball in my pocket.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I go like that. He goes, no, I don't do that either. And that's all he said. And I said, okay, out of respect to him, I'll have an Arnold Palmer. So I don't drink during this phone conversation or this lunch conversation. And here's what's the riveting part about this. This is probably the only really wow moment in my story. He's the same guy that introduced me to cocaine in 1996.
Wow.
He told me, he looked me right in the eyes, and he started to tear up, and he said, "You're the one person that I felt the worst about, and I've been looking for you for 20 years.
Wow.
My number had changed. I don't live anywhere."
Kidding.
And the guy called him, and the day that I stopped drinking, he texted me and asked me for a little piece of turf. And he looked at me, and again, it changed my life. And I genuinely believe that it had to be him.
Yeah.
And I'm asking my readers, I'm asking your audience, I'm asking all my friends, I'm asking anyone that ever hears my voice, is who is that person in your life that you could change?
Yeah.
Who can you impact and influence in a way that they might look at you one day and say, this interaction changed my life?
That's awesome.
Right? Because I go, hey, man, I give you $500 for your foundation, right? So
Yeah.
you got your foundation shirt on. I give you $500 for your foundation. That's good. That 500's gone. If you look at me and you say, man, we talked on your podcast, and I told my wife, and she told her sister, and her brother read your book, and he stopped doing something he didn't want to do anymore.
Yeah.
I guarantee you that $500 is not even close to as rewarding as
Yeah.
that conversation you're having 4 separations away.
Yeah.
So to whoever that is, and again, whomever that is, make that phone call, have that conversation. And again, the only good, unique part of my story is the fact that I'm willing to say it.
Yeah.
And when we all, again, have that opportunity to say, man, what are you struggling with? I hope you'll tell somebody. You don't need to carry that around. I talk about in chapter 5, the backpack of our life that we've carried around, and you talked a little bit about where we come from. Those are all instances. So a sexual trauma or your upbringing or your status or any of those sorts of things that we pack in the backpack, abandonment for me, like we pack those in the backpack of our life, like they are a circumstance, they are an incident, right? And so when those things happen, I have the opportunity and the choice to let them weigh me down or not.
Yeah.
I have the choice, and I talk about in the book about the fact that my father, didn't necessarily know any better. I met him in 2010 for the first time.
Really?
And so I still was in the grip of my addiction. And after I stopped drinking, he was one of the first people, like when I knew when I had stopped. My dad still parties, by the way, 64 years old. He still parties. It's insane. Anyway, he said to me, I wish I would have came back. And I said, I'm glad you didn't. Because if you come back, like one, I don't know what that looks like, but I don't get to have this moment.
Yeah.
Every single bad decision you made, every hurt that's been done to me, every flat tire of my life and every failure has led me to this exact moment right here, right now.
Yeah.
And if I take for granted and look back and regret, right, that's in my backpack that I get to unpack every day. I regret this about yesterday. Good. What can you do about it? Nothing. Throw it in the freaking river of life.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do with that.
Yep.
But what can you do? Like, can you make a phone call? Can you help somebody? Can you be a friend? Can you have a coffee? All of those sorts of behaviors are only part of my life because I'm living aware. I see it. I hear it. I know about it, right? And I want to talk about it. It fires me up. Like you talked about it. I'm fired up, right? And it carries, right? I have this conversation with you. I'll tell you what's going to happen. I'm going to go home and I'm going to eat my dinner. I'm going to be a better dad at dinner tonight because I had a conversation with you that inspired me.
Yeah.
They got me fired up about life. I don't want to go home and miss out on dinner by having a couple of vodkas and maybe just a gummy just because it was a rough day.
Yeah.
Like my stock account went down today. I guarantee it. I saw some of my red lines. I guarantee my stock account went down. I didn't sell any turf today, right? There's nothing. I haven't gotten sex. I didn't win at the slot machines, right? So all of those things that I think are what's going to be wins and losses in life, they're not. I'm going to have a dinner, and I'm going to look at my daughters, and I'm going to have one more meal with my daughters.
Yeah.
And if I approach every single opportunity like that to take it fully in, I want my daughters to go, wow, thank you so much for dinner.
Yeah.
Right? And then whatever that next opportunity is, and maybe it's tomorrow morning, I hope it's not. I hope I get the opportunity to be inspired by something I see on TV, something maybe I watch on the internet. I try to control that, but I go, man, if I'm going to get on the internet, you better feed me something inspiring. You better give me motivation for tonight.
Yeah.
Right. And whatever that, I call it the bath of life, and whatever that looks like for people, like where you can completely like bathe over. And again, I don't want to do it with vodka and drugs, but I want that kind of virtual visual of showering off your day, but doing it mentally and thanking the universe, source, God, whatever you want to call it, for the failures of today, because they lead to the successes of tomorrow.
Yeah.
Those are the things that are going to make me go, I want to be a better dad. And the only reason I want to show up for dinner tonight is because I stopped using drugs and alcohol a few years ago. And now there's nothing I don't do to chase joy.
Yeah.
And joy, I don't even know what she's cooking. And guess what? It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And it could be the worst meal I ever had. But if my daughters are there, and my book is riddled with stories about them, and anytime I speak, I get choked up about them, because there's opportunities with that small sphere of influence that I have that I hope I leave an impact on.
Yeah.
I hope they know what love looks like. Yeah. I hope that in their households they carry that around a little bit bigger and a little bit bolder, because Dad said he had problems and then he did something about it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Tracy, I mean, there's so much more we could sit here and talk about. And there's so much more we could unpack. We haven't even gotten into what you're doing today, all this stuff. But man, I have really enjoyed this conversation. I've enjoyed meeting with you. I'm looking forward to connecting and being able to do lunch or coffee or something at some point.
You better leave some time in your window. I told you I have the longest.
Absolutely. Hey, I will take all day.
This is an hour sit down there just getting into it. It's an hour and a half or 2 hours. I can't help it.
It's funny because somebody told me the other day, these ones that go a little longer than an hour, you probably need to cut them back a little bit. And I'm like, they're hard. But there's some times when you just start going and it's a good conversation.
Right.
And I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
I appreciate you for sharing your story with us, for being open, for being honest, for being raw and real. I appreciate your willingness to just touch anybody that you can. So kudos to you. Thank you for walking the path you walked and having all the struggles you had to get to where you are today, so that you are in a position that you can help people. So thank you for that. So,
thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So really appreciate it. One more thing. I have a gift for you.
Oh, good. I always like gifts. Did I win?
Yeah, yes, you won. So you have challenge coin. Everybody that comes on the show that's in APN gets a challenge coin. It's the Above and Beyond podcast. And then the other side is the APN logo. So we co-branded with that. And then I've got an orange juice glass for you. So,
perfect.
But it is actually engraved by Rocks Ink. So it's got your name and the year. Hopefully I gave you the right one.
Yeah.
Anyways, it's just a small token of my appreciation for coming on the show and being here with us today. So I appreciate it.
I love it, and it looks great. For anybody that's not seen this visually, put my eyes on it. It looks absolutely awesome, and it's so cool. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
This is Tracy Autber, and I've gone above and beyond.
We truly thrive.
Like, share, and subscribe to Above and Beyond, where excellence meets elevation. Elevate your mindset, one episode at a time.